When you study your Bible, it's interesting to look at the way some of the chapters can line up together and fit together to paint kind of one giant picture. For example, the chapter 2s of the Old Testament are not always, but some of them, very interesting the way they fit together. For example, in Isaiah chapter 2, the prophet talks about how God will, in Jerusalem, establish the mountain of his house, and how all nations would flow to it, and how salvation would flow out of it. In Daniel chapter 2, Daniel says that there's going to be this kingdom that is created by God that will never be destroyed. In Joel chapter 2, Joel talks about how power from heaven will be poured out on earth, beginning in Jerusalem, the same city Isaiah said in his chapter 2, salvation would also flow out of. And then you go to the New Testament in Acts chapter 2. The apostles are in Jerusalem, and power flows out of heaven and fills them, and they begin to work miracles and preach the gospel. And when the men they preach to start to question what's going on, Peter the apostle says, this is what's happening now, is what was predicted to happen in Joel of his writing, Joel chapter 2. What happened in Acts 2 was predicted in Joel 2. And what happens in Acts 2 is the gospel is first preached, men are first converted, and salvation is first brought down from heaven to earth, and men are added to the kingdom of Jesus Christ, the kingdom that Daniel predicted would be established, and the kingdom that Isaiah said would have the power of God flowing out of it, and the salvation of God flowing out of it, and all nations flowing unto it. And sure enough, in Acts chapter 2, the gospel is preached, men are saved, and the message starts to spread to not only the Jews, but to all nations as well. Isaiah 2 ties in with Daniel 2, which ties in with Joel 2, which is all fulfilled in Acts chapter 2, as the gospel is preached, salvation is brought down, and the kingdom of Christ is brought to earth. What a wonderful connection. I know that the chapters and verses were not originally written by those Bible writers. They were added later to help us understand the various books of the Bible better, and to help us with memorizing and finding certain texts. But there you go. You're able to find connections in the Bible through those chapter 2s. That's just something curious and interesting, I think, to think about.